100 days, Bush Lite took time from the links to take credit for getting bin Laden, a victory given to him by his predecessor's moral courage and for whom not a word of thanks was uttered. One more thing. President Bush declared early that he was going to focus on destroying al-Qaeda's ability to strike rather than chasing one single man. That's why the man that Bush Lite bragged about killing was not connected to the levers of power, moving his chess pieces against the great Satan through a series of secret conduits. He was, in fact, a beaten, bitter old man who sat alone in a shawl watching porn and speeches of himself back in the days of his glory before President Bush broke those levers and scattered those pieces by killing al-Qaeda in the sands of Iraq. Bush Lite, on the other hand, bungling a routine status of forces agreement, told the few survivors of al-Qaeda, actually, he promised them that we were getting out. Those survivors are now known as ISIS. Now, President Bush occasionally left the Oval Office for a round of golf. Bush Lite occasionally leaves the round of golf for the Oval Office. And while President Bush certainly was not without his faults, they were the faults of a man facing difficult decisions who made them and then owned up to them in the face of merciless political and personal criticism from people like Bush Lite, who now are forced by the same circumstances to make the same decisions, but who makes them late and makes them badly, and who then blames anyone but himself. Perhaps President Bush was not, in fact, a bad man who just liked killing people for fun. Bush Lite is doing the exact same things he did. Is he a bad man who likes killing people for fun too? Or is it that the job may be just a little harder than it looks from the outside? That maybe sometimes there aren't any good choices. There's just a bad choice and a worse choice. And finally, heresy of heresies. I think that not only is President Bush a better man than Bush Lite, I think he's a far smarter man as well. What? Obama went to Harvard. Bush went to Harvard too. And Yale. He went to both. But Bush was a C student. That's true. Bush Lite, on the other hand, wait, because no one actually knows what kind of a student Bush Lite was because he has, at great expense, kept his records sealed. We do know that when he was elected president of the Harvard Law Review President Lite never wrote a single law review. Isn't that interesting? You know, that seemed odd to me for the longest time till it finally dawned on me. Of course, Bush Lite wrote law reviews. He just never had any of his law reviews published. Must be because he was so brilliant, right? That's why they never published any of the president of the Harvard Law Review's law reviews. They were just too good. Or was it because once they read one or two of them, they realized, just as the rest of us are realizing this very day, that the fabled intellect is as dull and mundane as the fabled savvy and the fabled strength of the fabled everything else. So do I really think President Bush is smarter than Bush Lite? Well, yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. President Bush was an instrument-rated supersonic fighter pilot. Barack Obama handed out forms. Now, which one do you think is easier? But that's how Bush Lite likes it, though. Easy, relaxed. Let men make the decisions to win wars. The women in his life will tell Bush Lite when it's safe to come out and grab all the credit. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to visit us at truthrevolt.org. And to keep these messages coming, please consider making a donation by clicking here.
So how about that? Little words from Bill Whittle giving his comparison. Now again, folks, both his and Dan Joseph's, those are their words, not mine. I may agree with them, I may not. I haven't said one way or the other. But so if you have any comments for them, go ahead and leave your comments over on their sites, and they will see them. They won't see them if you leave them over here with me. However, I will, and I will be glad to engage in the discussion with you. I see both their points, and having been in the military, I know more about the War Powers Act than I ever wanted to know. The president can, without congressional approval, do actions for 60 days, extendable an additional 30 to get the troops out, and then he can actually turn around and extend that an additional 60 days plus 30 days of movement time. So it's actually 6 months of action he can do without congressional approval, folks. That's the way it really works out. And usually by that time, either Congress is going to approve and fund it, or the need for the operation is no longer there. Like the relief in Haiti after the tropical storms hit, or the tsunami relief that we did before then. Those were all military operations under the War Powers Act, believe it or not. Even though they were not acts of war, they were acts of humanitarian relief. And then, like when I was sent down to Panama, that was not war. That was a humanitarian mission to deal with Cuban refugees. So, interesting the way that works. So, is the War Powers Act really worthless or not? Will it ever really be enforced or not? That's we have a good question with that. And then, of course, the comparisons between Mr. Whittle, or Mr. Whittle's comparisons between Mr. Obama and Mr. Bush. Interesting as well. So I suggest you watch both the videos. They have some good graphics on there as well, beyond just the audio. I want to move on, though. It's time for some other things on this Freedom Friday. Speaking of Freedom Friday, that, of course, means enjoying your freedoms, especially the ones that are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution. Now, the Constitution does not grant these rights. It protects them. It says the government cannot infringe upon them. And then, of course, we're talking about the freedom of speech and the freedom to assemble peacefully. And we have something of that going on this weekend, along with, of course, the Second Amendment, which guarantees our rights to defend our individual natural rights to life and liberty and property. We can defend our families. We can defend our livelihoods. We can defend our personally owned property. And we can defend, of course, our own lives. So, that's the Second Amendment guarantees that the government doesn't infringe on this. And of course, the government has been infringing upon the Second Amendment ever since it was passed. Why? Because those in power don't want those not in power to be able to stand up and tell them no. That's bottom line what it is. If they hold all the force, well then, what do you have to leverage against them when they start doing stuff you don't like? Your vote? Well, if they hold all the force, your vote, eventually your vote's not going to matter. And that's how tyrannies are built. Now, we haven't had that really happen here in the United States. Not in a major way. We've had minor attempts, but it hasn't been a quick overtake. There has been a slow chipping away, many of us believe. But it hasn't been something like what happened in Germany in the 1930s. So we've been lucky that way, I guess. And part of that is because we do have the Second Amendment. Well, a group of Second Amendment advocates are gathering in San Antonio tomorrow. So if you're somewhere in Texas and you're within a decent travel range of San Antonio, especially if you happen to be of the female gender and you're over the age of 18, preferably over the age of 21, and you legally and lawfully own a firearm, preferably a rifle, come on over to San Antonio and join the Goddesses with Guns rally. Now, if you're a CHL holder, or even if you're not, but the only weapon you have is a pistol, do not come to San Antonio and open carry your pistol. It's against the law in Texas to open carry a pistol. So we're not advocating any law breaking here. But if you own a rifle, you can come and openly carry that as long as you have it on the sling and carry it within Texas law. So review the Texas laws before you do so. If you're uncomfortable doing so, but you still support the Second Amendment, and you still think that the MDA loonies are exactly that, loonies, and you think that a mother should be allowed to have a firearm to protect herself and her child, then come and join the rally. You don't have to bring a firearm, folks, or a knife or anything. You don't have to bring a weapon. You just have to bring yourself. Don't even necessarily need a sign. You just need to go and show support and join in the rally. So please do. It's being organized by Emily Grisham, who is also kind of leads a subgroup called Open Carry Texas Women. Kind of sort of leads that. It's not really an official group. It's just the women who happen to belong to Open Carry Texas have their own little Facebook page, so to speak. But Goddesses with Guns. This rally is being led, like I said, by Emily Grisham, and she is the wife of the founder and president of Open Carry Texas, Master Sergeant C.J. Grisham. So, husband and wife team here going and doing great things. Well, she's going, and like she told WOAI in San Antonio this morning, is that the idea for this rally is to show that Shannon Watts and her group, who represent a minority of people, do not represent the views of all women. So those of you who are women who support being able to defend yourselves within the constitutional constraints of our government, of our nation, then go ahead and join the rally. Well, that's my little 2 cents on support of Goddesses with Guns rally tomorrow. On the flip side, talking about MDA, well, if you go over to BuzzPo, there's an article over there. Something happened with Shannon and Watts's loonies when they went to go and try to kind of stand against firearms being brought into Kroger's, where some people were legally and lawfully carrying. And Kroger has taken a stance saying that they're not going to prohibit people from doing what the law allows them to do. If you don't like guns in the grocery store, then fine, you don't carry one or go shop elsewhere, is basically what they said. And since then, their business has boomed, by the way. Their statement like that has actually increased their business, not decreased it like Shannon Watts was hoping would happen. Well, MDA went to go and try to do their stuff over at a Kroger, and Shannon Watts' group, I don't think Shannon herself was there, but Mothers Demand Action Against Freedom and in Favor of Instilling Tyranny, otherwise known as MDA, or Mothers Demand Action for Gun Stupidity, or whatever their name is this week, every town, they got kicked out of Kroger. They got tossed out. That's nice. We don't want you here. You want to infringe on people's freedoms, and you want to assault, basically. Well, maybe assault's the wrong word. You want to antagonize our patrons. Leave. So the full write-up and the full article and the details are available over at BuzzPo. Like I said, Kroger kicked some Moms Demand Action MDA people out of there. And of course, MDA turned around and started bullying Kroger for owning their own property and doing what they will with it, which is within the law. So go ahead and read that. But MDA is on notice in some places and in some establishments. They're about as welcome to be there as Code Pink would be welcomed at a Marine Corps picnic. So there's the that kind of also kind of goes towards the loony liberals segment for today, folks. In the last couple of minutes, I just want to draw your attention to some of the loony liberals we have out there. There's a Democratic Party member, elected city councilman to New York City Council, who, well, he's reaching his term limit, so he's leaving his office, and his wife has announced that she's not going to run for re-election for her state assembly seat. So Charles Barron, the city council member, is running for his wife's the seat his wife currently holds in the state assembly. Meanwhile, his wife is running for his seat on the city council. So they're just changing offices. They're swapping offices. And the way the elections are going, that's actually going to happen. with the way the polls are now, but we'll find out in November if that turns out to be the case. Anyway, what this wonderful individual admitted to a bunch of reporters is that his heroes, including his childhood heroes, have all been enemies of the United States and freedom and basic human rights, etc. He has grown to love and admire people like Muammar Qadaffi, Idi Amin, and Fidel Castro, and others who are known for committing mass atrocities, mass murders, attempted genocides, instilling tyranny, etc. And he actually upholds these people as being great and wonderful people. He actually admitted that they are his heroes, even though they hate America and everything America stands for. Now, I'm not sure what you think about that, but I think it's interesting that he's admitting his affiliation with tyranny. He's one of the folks that not only would have sided with the Tories during the war for independence. He would have been one of the people who would have been going and sneaking in to people's houses, thinking not knowing whether they were or weren't for independence, but he would assume that they were, and probably would be doing acts of terrorism against the colonials back in that time. He just seems like that type of person. He seems like one of the people that would have tried to burn down the building where the Constitutional Convention was taking place, while it was taking place, just to keep it from being passed. So, it does not seem like a good guy, folks. Which, of course, probably means that he loves Obama, because it seems like they both emulate the same type of people. Yeah. So, at least he admits it. At least he's not trying to hide it. I just wonder what terrorist Bill Ayers would say about Charles Barron, especially after he told his buddy or said that his buddy Rahm Emanuel was a white supremacist, which I found very interesting for a couple of reasons. For one thing, I don't think Rahm Emanuel is necessarily white, and the other thing is, well, I would say he's a collectivist. And they're both on the same side of the aisle, he and Billy Ayers. So I think they both kind of believe in the same things. But that's just my way of looking at things. Well, folks, that comes close to wrapping up our show for the day. We only have a little bit left. And real quick, let's give a listen to what Senator Ted Cruz is saying about the amnesty program that Obama is trying to pass.
I would be ignoring the law in a way that I think would be very difficult to defend legally.
It's outrageous. President Obama is planning to offer amnesty to millions of immigrants who've entered the United States illegally.
I would be ignoring the law.
But Obama wants to do it after the November elections because he knows amnesty is unpopular and he doesn't want Democratic senators held accountable. We all celebrate legal immigration, but Obama's planned amnesty undermines one of the fundamental principles that makes our country so great, the rule of law.
Very difficult to defend legally.
We cannot hope to solve the crisis at the border without first addressing the fundamental cause of it. Log on to StopObamasAmnesty.com and sign the petition to stop Obama's amnesty. Senator Ted Cruz is leading the fight to secure the border, stop Obama's amnesty, and celebrate legal immigration. But he needs your help to hold Obama and Senate Democrats accountable. Sign the petition at StopObamasAmnesty.com and send a message to President Obama. No more amnesty.
Well, there you have it, folks. And that about does it for today's show and this week's worth of shows. Hopefully you caught it live. If not, I hope you listen to the podcast. And we'll see you back here on Monday at 8 a.m.